Anthony Davis's return. So, Stephen A., who is the biggest threat to the Lakers in the West? Is it the Jazz or is it the Clippers?
Is that for me or Matt?
Yeah.
That's for you, Stephen A.
At this particular moment, I'm going to have to go with the Jazz. And it's strictly because of depth. I understand that they don't have Kawhi Leonard and they don't have Paul George, but I believe in Donovan Mitchell. I believe that Donovan Mitchell is a stud. Now, I'm not an overall believer in the Jazz in terms of them knocking off a healthy Los Angeles Lakers squad, which is the position that I took yesterday. But I will tell you that if the Anthony Davis is down and out, when I look at the Jazz as more formidable because I look at them as a deeper team, and I look at Donovan Mitchell as a superstar in the making. If he's not already there, he is just something special. He doesn't fold or fade come playoff time. He's going to make sure his presence is felt. And then I look at what they do defensively. They're like third in the league defensively. They're fourth offensively. They distribute the ball. They've got how many dudes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different dudes averaging 11 and a half points or better on this squad. You've got a guy in Royce O'Neal who's a defensive ace on the perimeter, and a guy in Rudy Gobert who's a defensive player of the year and a candidate for that award practically every single year. And so you've got defense on the interior, you've got defense on the perimeter, and you've got a cat like Donovan Mitchell, who's a flat-out stud. Mike Conley has been playing well. Bogdanovich was a big-time pickup. I just look at them right now in terms of their depth. And if the Lakers are not standing there, then ultimately with the Clippers or anybody else, it comes down to one or two players. The Clippers with Kawhi, Paul George, Denver with Jamal Murray or the Joker. Portland with Nurkic or McCollum rather, and Dame Dollar. But Utah, they can hit you in a multitude of ways, and that's why I have to look at them and say, if the Lakers can't go, they could be a bigger threat to anybody.
Well, I actually think the Clippers are also extremely deep. I admit this is extremely close because Donovan Mitchell showed in the playoffs, Stephen A., that when it matters most, he is a superstar. Whether he's a star or a superstar normally, when it matters most, he's a superstar. We'll see if Mike Conley can be that too, and then you have a 1-2 punch, maybe. And Paul George also needs to show he can be that deuce to Kawhi's ace. But what it comes down to for me is, do I want Kawhi Leonard and Paul George or Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley? I want Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. And I have to believe one of these postseasons, Paul George is really going to show up. But I like the long, athletic, elite two-way wing players. And that's what the Clippers have. In terms of the depth, you're absolutely right to point out the Jazz depth and Royce O'Neal and guys like that who can really 3-and-D. You know, a lot of times the team has a guy on the bench. Oh, he's our 3-and-D player. Not really, in name mainly, but a guy like O'Neal's a real 3-and-D guy, an elite guy in that respect. And you point out Gobert and all the different parts that they have. Bogdanovich, they really do have a lot of good parts. So do the Clippers. And by the way, they've been all banged up. Even Batum is starting to get nicked up now, right? And Patrick Beverley's missed time, and Kawhi and Paul George. They're only 2.5 games behind the Jazz in spite of all those injuries. So they have their big two, but they also have Ibaka, and they also have Patrick Beverley, and they also have Lou Williams, and they also have Marcus Morris. And I mentioned Nick Batum, who's had a career renaissance, and he's a very good player when healthy and on the floor and motivated, which he seems to be. I haven't even mentioned, Reggie Jackson or they like the Jazz, are an extremely well-coached Ty Lue, Quinn Snyder, both elite coaches, an extremely well-coached and deep team. For me, it comes down to whose 1-2 punch do you like best? I like the Clippers a little more than the Jazz.
Well, I don't view the Jazz as a 1-2 punch. I think their one punch is their defense. Their 1-2 punch is Donovan Mitchell and his supporting cast, whoever that may be on a night-in, night-out basis. It could be Conley one night, Bogdanovich another night, Rudy Gobert another night, et cetera, et cetera. But they are an elite defensive team, in my estimation. Not to say that the Clippers are not, but they definitely are. Number two, I've got the backdrop of two dudes folding in gold in Game 7. Number three, I'm not a fan of the Luke Kennard pickup. I mean, I know he's no scrub and he can shoot the ball, but I've never been a fan of that. You know, to me, to some degree, And I don't know how, because I need to watch them a little bit more, because obviously I'm a very, very busy man, hosting 3 damn shows for crying out loud. I got to tell you, Lou Williams doesn't seem to be like himself. I think that something has compromised him to some degree. Don't get me wrong, he's still averaging like 12 a game, whatever, but this is Lou we talking about here. This is Lou Williams. You understand? 6th man of the year and all that. I mean, this dude right here, he is a scoring machine, and I'm not seeing what I'm accustomed to seeing him. And I saw his minutes compromised a bit early in the season. I was wondering what the hell's going on with Ty Lue, who I think is a Coach of the Year candidate, by the way. I think he's doing a hell of a job. But in the end, what it comes down to is that the Clippers, you know where they're going, and you know who they're going to rely upon when all is said and done. And it's going to come down to Kawhi and Paul George. I got news for you. Crunch time, money on the line. There are very, very few people in this world that I'd be more comfortable giving the ball to than Donovan Mitchell. The brother is a stud.
I'm with you. Donovan Mitchell's a stud.
He is Dwayne Wade 2.0. He's the new version of Dwayne Wade. That's who Donovan Mitchell is to me.
Well, yeah, either 2.0 or 0.9.
All right, whatever works.
We don't know if he's 2.0.
You know what I'm
but
saying?
He is. I get it about the Dwayne Wade comparison. I'm a huge Donovan Mitchell fan. But in spite of Kawhi's choke in Game 7, Stephen A., he had another all-time great playoff run last year, followed by one of the greatest postseasons of all time the year before. He's a 2-time Finals MVP. So Kawhi, I also very much trust in that situation. One thing I'll say is the Clippers may have the best 2 players in the series, maybe, depending on how Paul George plays. But the Jazz are a little deeper on top. Like Bogdanovich and Gobert are better than anyone else other than the big 2 on the Clippers. I want to point this out, though. When Kawhi and Paul George have been on the court together this season, you can argue the Clippers have been the best team in basketball. They are outscoring opponents per 100 possessions
except
by
for when
over
they lost to
20
Brooklyn.
points.
Except
They've been unstoppable.
Except for when they lost to Brooklyn. And I'll end it by saying this, Max Kellerman, something for you to sit on, you and Charlie. That's another angle about the Anthony Davis injury. You let us down by not meeting LeBron in the conference finals last year, Kawhi Leonard. Well, with Anthony Davis out, this might be the Clippers' best chance ever. If Anthony Davis isn't 100%, and somehow, some way, somebody else comes out of the West, other than the Clippers, if Anthony Davis goes down for the Lakers.
Are you hearing anything? Are you hearing anything about AD?
No, Max. I'm just worried because of the kids. I'm not hearing anything about it. I'm glad you asked that question. I'm not hearing anything about it. I'm just worried. But if you're the Clippers and Anthony Davis goes down and he can't come back close to 100%, there's no excuse for the Clippers. Because if you don't win this year, you may never win anything with Kawhi and Paul George. And I'm rooting for Paul George.
Yeah, we're all rooting for Paul George, but Stephen A., to your point about the Jazz, they're doing some big things right now. Last night, they became the first team in NBA history to record 17 double-digit wins over the course of 20 games. So we'll see what happens in the West, gentlemen. All right, let's move on because, of course, we have so much more to get to. We're getting back